In a chilling twist, royal watchers were stunned as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was spotted entering a private hospital completely alone. No security entourage, no family, no William, just silence. What happened next sent shockwaves through the monarchy. Was this a medical emergency or a message? And where exactly was Prince William during her most vulnerable moment? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The images appeared without warning, spreading like wildfire across social media feeds and private royal watcher forums alike. Grainy but unmistakable. Catherine stepping through the hospital entrance with her head slightly lowered, her posture composed but her presence strangely unguarded. No familiar protection detail flanking her. No senior aide whispering instructions. No husband at her side. For a woman whose life had been choreographed down to the smallest gesture, the absence of ceremony felt deafening. It wasn't just what people saw, it was what they didn't see. And in royal circles, absence often speaks louder than any statement. Within minutes, speculation ignited. Some claimed it was a sudden pregnancy complication. Others whispered about emotional collapse, exhaustion, or something far more unsettling. Screens filled with questions no one in the palace was answering. Why this hospital? Why alone? Why now? And perhaps most disturbingly of all, why had no official channels prepared the public for this moment? Royal aides, normally swift and surgical in controlling narratives, were nowhere to be found. No press briefing. No carefully worded reassurance. Just an expanding void where certainty should have been. Then came the stills. Close-up shots captured by long lenses from impossible distances, Catherine's face noticeably pale, her eyes hidden behind dark glasses. And on her left hand, where a symbol of stability had rested for years, there was nothing. No wedding ring. That single missing detail did what thousands of words could not. It turned concern into dread. Because in the world of royal symbolism, nothing is ever accidental, and nothing is ever meaningless. Inside the palace, the mood reportedly shifted from confusion to something far colder. Senior staff, who had not been briefed, began making frantic calls. Departments accustomed to precision found themselves grasping in the dark. Schedules had not been adjusted. Appearances had not been cancelled. Yet Catherine was in a hospital and Prince William was nowhere in sight, not at her side, not before the cameras, not even at the engagements he was expected to attend. He simply vanished. That disappearance fed the unease. Every hour that passed without William's emergence made the situation feel less like a health concern and more like the opening chapter of a royal fracture. Insiders quietly admitted that his absence from Ned and the monarchy stood on the edge of a PR cliff. The first sign of rupture came not through a televised statement or official document, but through absence. Prince William was slated to appear at a high-profile diplomatic dinner, one that had taken weeks of planning and was meant to reaffirm the monarchy's international presence. Yet without warning, he pulled out. No replacement, no pretext, nothing but a deafening silence that echoed louder than any announcement could. Behind the scenes, aides scrambled, phones rang non-stop, ambassadors were left in the lurch. And inside the palace, an eerie realization began to set in. This wasn't a scheduling issue. This was defiance. A leaked message, its origin still unknown, sent shockwaves through internal royal channels. It read, "The prince will not be returning to public duties at this time. His focus remains personal." Panic rippled through departments. No one had been briefed. The inner circle had no strategy in place. The optics were catastrophic. The future king abandoning post in the middle of growing public speculation about his wife's well-being. It was unprecedented, and for the firm, dangerously uncontrollable. The myth of unity was breaking apart in real time. Senior royals immediately moved to contain the fallout, but they couldn't contain their own discord. Tensions erupted in private chambers. Some argued for a swift public appearance by Charles to reinforce stability. Others urged silence, hoping the storm would pass. But nothing could prepare them for the rumor that began circulating inside the palace halls. A private confrontation had taken place between William and his father, one so intense, it reportedly ended with the younger royal walking out, refusing to return. The words exchanged were said to be volcanic. No cameras, no mediator, just a father, a son, and years of unresolved tension exploding in one unguarded moment. Meanwhile, Camila, now pushed to the forefront of royal duties, was said to be livid, with Charles thrown into internal crisis mode and William unreachable. It fell on her to uphold the ceremonial image of continuity, but insiders claim she did so begrudgingly, fuming behind closed doors. One source overheard her muttering, "If he abandons the throne for her, he'll take the crown down with him. The fracture wasn't just between individuals. It was between generations, between the crown's past and its uncertain future, as media worldwide picked up on the story. Headlines screamed betrayal, loyalty, and looming collapse. Was this a romantic stand or a royal mutiny? Commentators clashed on air. Social feeds surged with support for William's bold devotion and skepticism about what it meant for the monarchy's operational integrity. The public demanded answers, but the palace gave none. And as cameras remained fixed on the hospital entrance, it was clear this wasn't just about Catherine's health anymore. It was about the heart of the institution and whether it could survive. When its heirs began choosing love over duty, but while the world speculated about William's decision, a hidden rift was bubbling beneath the surface, one that had been quietly growing for years. Behind palace walls, not everything sparkled. Friends close to the couple reveal late-night arguments, whispered doubts, and long silences at family dinners. Was Catherine's hospital visit the result of physical distress or emotional collapse? And how long had William been choosing the crown over his own wife? It was never meant to unravel like this. From the outside, William and Catherine projected calm, stable, unified, destined. But within the confines of royal life, a very different story was playing out. Those closest to the couple began to speak, cautiously and anonymously, of something rarely acknowledged in public, a breakdown in emotional intimacy. Once inseparable, the future king and queen had, over time, become strangers sharing duties rather than dreams. Staff members noted the small things first: the reduction in shared engagements, Catherine's increasing preference for solo appearances, the palpable chill during formal dinners at Anne Hall. These were not signs of convenience, they were signs of something splintering. Beneath the surface, the past year had taken its toll. William's schedule had ballooned, with international summits, royal tours, and last-minute crises demanding his attention. Catherine, once his closest ally and confidante, was left navigating royal life, largely alone. Sources described her as withdrawn, quietly troubled, seeking spaces of silence where once she sought connection. Silent retreats, long drives to undisclosed locations. Moments that weren't about hiding from the public, but from something far closer to home. Her withdrawal from multiple royal initiatives over the past few months was explained away as logistical, but those on the inside knew better. She wasn't just stepping back, she was holding on. At Anne Hall, hushed meetings took place behind drawn curtains. Conversations not about statecraft, but survival. Whether to continue under the crushing weight of expectation, or step away and risk tearing open the very fabric of the monarchy. Advisors were split. Some pleaded for privacy, others urged transparency. Catherine, ever graceful in public, began to show cracks behind the scenes. Her health, both physical and emotional, began to mirror the pressure she could no longer carry alone. And William, he noticed, but many asked, did he notice too late? A particularly disturbing episode unfolded weeks before the hospital visit. At a public charity event, Catherine abruptly left midway through, citing illness. But those present whispered about a sudden wave of panic, visible anxiety, and a moment in the back room where she was seen in tears. No statement followed. The palace buried it as a private matter. But for those who had seen the signs, it was confirmation that something deep had fractured. And as Catherine stepped into that hospital alone days later, it was clear she was not simply seeking medical care, she was sending a message. And just when the nation thought the couple might recover, a hidden message surfaced that turned everything upside down. It was only meant for William. A note left beside Catherine's bed, handwritten, fragile, and heart-wrenching. But when a member of staff leaked its contents, the world finally got a glimpse into Catherine's silent suffering. And William? He was never the same again. The note was simple, yet devastating in its honesty. It bore no royal seal, no signature of grandeur, just Catherine's unmistakable script etched in trembling ink. Her words, raw and unfiltered, pierced through the polished image the palace had so carefully protected. She spoke not of titles or duties, but of abandonment. "I feel like a shadow walking beside you," she wrote. "The world sees us as a team, but I've never felt more alone." The sentence that broke the hearts of millions and shattered William's carefully constructed world was chilling in its simplicity. "You chose them. I needed you." These weren't the words of a future queen making a complaint. They were the desperate confession of a woman who had carried the weight of monarchy, motherhood, and public scrutiny, silently, until she couldn't anymore, though intended to remain private. The letter didn't stay hidden for long. A trusted aide, emotionally overwhelmed and reportedly concerned for Catherine's safety, shared a portion of the note with a journalist. What followed was a media frenzy, unlike anything the royal family had seen in decades. But behind the headlines, the palace went into full lockdown. William was said to have been shown the letter in a private room at the hospital, where his reaction stunned even his closest advisors. Protocol shattered, he returned to see her not once, but twice that night, violating royal scheduling, abandoning security protocol, and refusing to inform his father. He was no longer the heir. In that moment, he was just a husband, a broken one. One royal nanny later revealed an incident that occurred that very evening at their residence. Prince George, unaware of the media storm, asked a simple question after overhearing hushed conversation. Why is Mummy sad if Daddy loves her? The words reportedly left the staff in tears, and it was that same night that William scribbled a reply to Catherine, placing it by her bedside without alerting anyone. I failed you, but not again. 6 words. A vow. A warning. A signal that everything was about to change. What began as a private unraveling was now a global reckoning. Commentators, psychologists, and royal insiders all dissected the note's meaning. Some called it a cry for help, others an emotional indictment of a monarchy that demands silence over support. But no one could deny its impact. That single note was said to be the final catalyst that drove William to cancel all royal duties, severing himself from the machinery that had kept him distant from the very person he was meant to protect. The world now saw the Waleses not as figureheads, but as 2 people caught between love and legacy. The note became a symbol of everything Catherine had endured, and everything William was now willing to risk. But it wasn't just love and loyalty at play, because what Catherine uncovered during her hospital visit would expose something far more sinister. Deep within the hospital's restricted archives, Catherine allegedly accessed a classified royal medical log, one not meant for her eyes. What she read not only explained her symptoms, but exposed a royal cover-up that had been buried for decades, and someone in the firm wanted it kept that way. It began with a question one Catherine quietly asked her doctors after the 3rd unexplained episode in less than 2 months. Symptoms that didn't align, tests that came back vague, results that triggered concern but were never fully explained. One specialist, hesitant and clearly under pressure, reportedly whispered a single phrase, "It's not new, it's known." That phrase sent Catherine into a quiet panic, and it's what led her to request access to the hospital's private registry, reserved for select royal files shielded from public or even medical review. It was there, tucked behind several encrypted entries, that she discovered a file marked Royal DNA, private, dated 1997. That year wasn't random. It was the same year the world lost Diana. But Incy D, the file had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with something far older and far more dangerous. The document contained lab reports, coded genetic sequence, and notations indicating a hereditary anomaly linked to the royal bloodline but traced specifically through maternal branches. It was a condition quietly monitored, never disclosed, and flagged as a non-curable but suppressible mutation. What made it chilling wasn't just its existence, but the names associated with it. Several distant royal women, including obscure cousins, and even a duchess, long believed to have died of natural causes, were listed. But one name hadn't been redacted: Elizabeth. Catherine's heart stopped. Whatever this was, it went to the very top. And suddenly, her own health crisis didn't feel like fate, it felt like legacy. What disturbed her most was a side note, handwritten by a now-deceased royal physician, linking Catherine's maternal lineage to one of the flagged genetic groups. The implications were horrifying. Had this condition been passed down, known about, yet hidden from her? And if so, why was no one in the palace speaking of it now? The answer came faster than she expected. Within hours of her viewing the file, hospital servers were remotely shut down, IT systems locked, records erased, staff questioned, the file gone. But it was too late. Catherine had already made copies. Palace security immediately descended on the hospital under the guise of routine protection. But so, Urses say their real mission was to retrieve every trace of what Catherine had seen. Orders came from the highest level: suppress, deny, bury. But they hadn't anticipated the courage or desperation of one insider. A hospital whistleblower, who had been monitoring the entire sequence of events, reached out anonymously with a chilling warning: they'll come after her now. She knows too much. What Catherine uncovered wasn't just medical history, it was royal history. A secret woven into generations. One that questioned not only health, but the very purity and legitimacy of the bloodline. If proven, it could shake the foundation of hereditary rule. And in a system built on lineage, secrecy is survival. But Catherine was no longer willing to be quiet. The more they silenced her, the louder the truth roared in her ears. Catherine's discovery didn't just threaten royal health records, it threatened the royal hierarchy. And the next move came fast, cold and cruel. With William out of sight and Catherine silenced, Queen Camilla made her move. A secret council was called behind closed doors, no invitations to the Welses. What followed was a brutal reshuffling of royal power and a whisper campaign that could destroy Catherine's public image forever. The mood within the palace shifted from chaos to calculation, with William absent from royal duties and Catherine reportedly still confined to hospital care under tight security. The old guard seized their moment. Queen Camilla, long criticised for her behind-the-scenes influence, emerged as the central strategist. Sources claim that within 48 hours of Catherine's discovery, Camilla convened an emergency meeting with senior royals and top aides. William was neither informed nor consulted. The message was clear: if the heir would not act, the institution would act for him. What unfolded during that meeting marked the beginning of one of the most cold-blooded power plays in modern royal history. Multiple insiders reported that Camilla advocated for the immediate reassessment of William's succession role, questioning his emotional stability and fitness to lead. On paper, it sounded like concern, but those in the room felt it for what it truly was: a political maneuver wrapped in royal etiquette. Camilla allegedly argued that William's emotional entanglement with Catherine had compromised his judgment. Her solution? Quietly shift more operational power to other senior royals, specifically herself, and those loyal to her branch of the family. The proposal didn't need unanimous support, it just needed silence. And silence, in that moment, was all it got. But the real damage came not from titles, but from whispers. Mere hours after the meeting, anonymous sources began feeding the press an unsettling new narrative. Catherine was undergoing serious psychological evaluation. Headlines multiplied, painting her as unstable, fragile, even delusional. None of it was confirmed, all of it was damaging. In the background, a digital campaign ignited like wildfire. Social media bots flooded timelines with curated smears, old videos of Catherine taken out of context, baseless rumors of secret addictions, even fake medical records circulated in dark corners of the web. It was a character assassination at scale, orchestrated with eerie precision. One palace aide, speaking anonymously, made the most damning statement of all: Camilla wants Catherine gone. Not silenced, removed. It wasn't just about protecting the firm, it was about rebalancing the power dynamic. With Charles growing weaker and the next generation in disarray, Camilla saw an opportunity to cement her legacy not as queen consort, but as the force that held the monarchy together by any means necessary. And then there was Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, known for her discretion and loyalty to both camps, was spotted leaving the strategy meeting visibly shaken, tearful, tight-lipped and pale. She reportedly told one staffer, this isn't what she would have wanted. Some believe she referred to Queen Elizabeth. Others suspect the words were for Diana. Either way, the implication was chilling. Whatever was happening inside those walls was a betrayal of the monarchy's very soul, but Catherine wasn't finished, and what she did next would catch the royal establishment completely off guard. For the first time in royal history, Catherine took to the camera uncensored, unsanctioned, and unstoppable. In a raw video posted anonymously and leaked, she spoke not as a princess, but as a mother, a wife, and a woman pushed to the brink. The crown wanted her silent. She chose the word instead. The video was barely 2 minutes long, but in that brief window everything changed. The footage, filmed in what appeared to be a quiet, private room, revealed a version of Catherine the world had never seen, unguarded, trembling with truth, and fueled by something far stronger than fear. Her voice cracked but didn't break. Her message was simple: I am not leaving, but I am standing up. No royal emblem, no scripted statement, no PR spin. Just Catherine, staring into the lens with the weight of centuries pressing against her back and still refusing to bow. It was, in every way, a declaration of war against the silence that had consumed her. Without naming names, she spoke of betrayal cloaked in duty, of decisions made in rooms she was never allowed to enter, of lies whispered into the ears of kings and broadcast as royal truth. She didn't accuse directly, but her words left no ambiguity. You cannot protect tradition by destroying the people who uphold it, she said. You cannot honor the crown while silencing those who carry it. The public understood immediately. She wasn't just calling out injustice, she was calling out the institution itself. A monarchy that demanded perfection while offering none in return. Within hours, the internet erupted. Hashtags surged. Hashtag Stand With Catherine trended globally. Celebrities, political figures, and even royal reporters, who once played by palace rules, broke ranks to express solidarity. Suddenly, it wasn't just Catherine against the machine, it was Catherine and millions behind her. The narrative shifted overnight. No longer a fragile wife in crisis, she became a symbol of resilience, a face of modern royalty refusing to be erased by old-world power plays. Inside the palace, the reaction was instant and volatile. The media team, blindsided and scrambling, launched into crisis control mode. Their plan to drip-feed reassuring stories and counter the storm with subtle PR leaks fell apart before it even began. The story had outgrown them. This wasn't a scandal to be buried, it was a movement to be reckoned with. And worse, the one person they feared most hadn't yet spoken. Catherine's speech wasn't just about exposure. It was about reclaiming agency. It was a signal to William, to the world, and to the walls that had closed in around her that she would no longer be the crown's silent shield. The palace had underestimated her. They had gambled on her restraint. And they had lost. If Catherine's video was a firestorm, what came next was an earthquake, and it had William's name all over it. In a stunning public declaration, Prince William denounced centuries of silence, secrecy, and sacrifice. If protecting the institution means destroying the woman I love, then I choose her. Future King had spoken, and for the first time, he wasn't speaking for the monarchy. He was speaking for himself. The broadcast was unannounced, unpreviewed, and unlike anything the monarchy had ever allowed. Except this time, the monarchy did. To approve it, William bypassed them all. BBC evening schedule was interrupted by the royal crest, but what followed was not a ceremonial address, it was a reckoning. William appeared alone, no insignias, no fanfare, just resolve. His voice, controlled but blazing with conviction, cut through the nation like a blade through silk. He began not with platitudes, but with an accusation. There has been press manipulation, internal sabotage, and a coordinated effort to silence and discredit my wife. I will not stand for it. With those words, the last fragments of royal decorum shattered. The heir to the throne had just turned on the very system he was born to inherit. He did. Stop there. William laid bare the rot behind the curtain, how narratives were crafted, how loyalty was punished, and how love, when inconvenient, became a threat. Without naming names, he condemned those within the palace who weaponized tradition to protect power, not people. He declared a personal ceasefire from all royal duties, stating he would not return to the public eye until a full internal inquiry was launched into the events that led to Catherine's isolation, the smear campaigns, and the suppression of critical truths regarding her condition. The silence that had once been his armor was now his enemy. This was no longer about duty, it was about justice. In one of the most emotional moments of the address, William glanced momentarily off camera. Then, almost as if by fate, Prince George stepped into frame. The young boy clapped quietly, his eyes fixed on his father. It lasted only a few seconds, but it said more than any statement ever could. This wasn't just a declaration. It was an inheritance being rewritten in real time. The heir was choosing a different legacy, one forged in defiance, not deference. Inside the palace, reactions exploded. Some royals, particularly those aligned with the younger generation, privately expressed admiration. Others viewed it as treason, an irreparable breach of protocol. Behind the scenes, lines were being drawn, alliances forming, and retaliation quietly brewing. The Queen Consort's camp, reportedly blindsided, began an emergency response strategy, furious at how quickly public opinion was shifting. Overnight, William and Catherine were no longer just royals in crisis, they were revolutionaries at the gates of an empire built on silence. But William's message wasn't just a protest, it was a promise, a warning to those who still believed the monarchy could suffocate dissent without consequence. I will not allow history to repeat itself, he said in closing, eyes blazing. And with that, he stepped out of the role history had assigned him and into the one he chose for himself. And while the palace trembled from William's defiance, a mysterious envelope delivered to Catherine. The hospital room threatened to change everything again. Sealed in wax and marked with a royal cipher unseen since Queen Victoria's reign, the envelope was labelled only for her eyes only. Inside was a letter from a long-dead monarch, a revised decree, and a hidden truth that could permanently alter the future of the British throne. The envelope arrived without ceremony, quietly slipped into Catherine's hospital room by a courier whose name did not appear on any official list. Nurses said nothing, Security looked the other way. No one claimed responsibility. But when Catherine opened it, the world shifted. Inside, the pages were yellowed with age, but immaculately preserved, bearing the unmistakable handwriting of Queen Elizabeth II from the early years of her reign. The letter began not with protocol, but prophecy. It spoke of a contingency to be enacted only in the gravest of internal danger should the bloodline be compromised by corruption, manipulation, or betrayal from within. What followed were names, titles, and a diagram that reconfigured everything the monarchy had ever acknowledged. About succession, Catherine's name, or more specifically, her maternal lineage, was at the center of it. The document referred to a distant but traceable line, long buried in historical archives and sealed under royal protection, which placed Catherine within the framework of royal legitimacy not through marriage but through blood. Elizabeth, in a move never made public, had quietly recorded the existence of what she called a second branch of guardianship, a safeguard she never intended to activate, unless the primary line failed to uphold the crown with integrity. It was not a direct claim to the throne. It was something far more destabilizing. It was a written, signed acknowledgement that in times of internal crisis, inheritance alone would not be enough. Protection, character, and the will to serve were the true qualifiers. William, upon reading the letter beside Catherine, reportedly broke down. For the first time it all made sense. The sabotage, the silencing, the calculated attempts to fracture them. It wasn't just about power. It was about fear. Fear that Catherine's place in the future of the monarchy wasn't symbolic, but strategic. The final line of the letter said it all. The future belongs to those who protect it, not those who inherit it. It wasn't an endorsement. It was a warning. The next morning, black government vehicles lined the drive outside the hospital. Quiet figures entered. Papers were exchanged. And then, without a word to the press, William and Catherine were escorted into one of the cars. As the gates of Buckingham Palace closed behind them under a sheet of cold rain, no statement was made. But inside those walls, a storm was brewing, one that could end the monarchy as it had always been known, or give birth to something entirely new. And now, as the world watches, one question remains: is this the end of the monarchy as we know it, or the beginning of a new reign born not of privilege but of truth? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.